the number 6700, which agenda item are you here for? So we provide the opportunity for public comment for you if you want. Okay. We will take that as it comes. All right. Well, Annie, thanks so much. We will move on. I want to make sure everyone's not frozen up here. Okay, I think Teams is working. So is there any public comment on items not on today's agenda? And we do have a full agenda today with a hard stop at 11 a.m. So we've got to fit it all in between now and then. Any comment on non-agenda items? Okay, well, let's just roll right into our first agenda item. This is a request for the board to introduce and provisionally approve the tobacco resolution for the extraterritorial application of the City of Missoula Tobacco Ordinance. And Lisa Beskevich, are you introducing this for us today?
I am. Good morning, commissioners. And I just wanted to say that over the past couple of years, the department has been working closely with the City Council, the City Council's Attorney's Office, and community stakeholders to develop the ordinance that addresses the youth tobacco crisis. And really, and then what we're bringing to you today is a resolution to expand that ordinance into extraterritorial approval. That's 5 miles outside of city limits. And I have Arwen Wielander here, our tobacco prevention specialist, to go through a real quick PowerPoint. I know we're short on time, so I just want to pull her up to share with you why this is important and what the resolution covers. So Arwen, are you with us? And can you share?
Looks like you're muted, Arwen.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, good. All right, I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to be quick because I know you guys got a full agenda. So here we go. So good morning, and thank you for letting me take the time to present the recommendation to approve the City of Missoula's application of the Tobacco Ordinance 3672. As we all know, tobacco is the leading cause of preventable disease and death in the United States, and nearly all tobacco product use begins during youth and young adulthood. Recent changes in the tobacco landscape and the introduction of electronic cigarette devices have shifted the types of tobacco products youth use. The progress made in working towards this 2-decade decline in overall tobacco use is now being undone due to e-cigarettes. E-cigarettes are now the most used tobacco product among youth, both nationally and among Montana youth. And as the 2019 Youth Risk Behavior Survey does show, 58% of Montana high school students have used e-cigarettes, putting Montana right at the top of ever used e-cigarette use in the nation for high school students. And this is concerning as youth are uniquely at risk for long-lasting effects of nicotine exposure if their brains are still developing and making permanent connections until the age of 25 years old. And the high concentrations in these products is a significant concern. And nicotine levels in e-cigarettes are highly variable, with many products exceeding levels found in combustible cigarettes. And as these charts show, this chart, frequent use of e-cigarette products by Montana high school students has increased 243% in a 2-year time span between 2017 and 2019, making e-cigarettes the most used tobacco product among Montana's youth. With over half of Montana high school students having tried e-cigarettes and 1 in 3 high school students currently using e-cigarettes, these numbers are alarming. And the numbers I'm presenting on the screen are the rates for our high school students, but I would like to mention that e-cigarette use tripled among middle school students in the same time period. And research also shows that youth who use e-cigarettes are 4 times more likely to become regular combustible cigarette smokers. And currently, high school students are using e-cigarettes at 5 times the rate of Montana adults. How did we get here? Flavored tobacco products are often the first tobacco product youth and young adults ever use, as the studies show 96% of 12 to 17-year-old who initiate e-cigarette use started with a flavored product. 70% of youth and young adults report flavors the reason they continue to use e-cigarettes. Flavors improve the taste and they reduce the harshness of tobacco products, making them more appealing and easier for young people to use. Flavors also create the impression that these products are less harmful than they really are. It is also not just the flavor themselves that is appealing, but their colorful and kid-centric oriented packaging with product names that are used to target children. And flavors make it easier to become addicted, as well as prolonging addiction of current users. Eliminating flavors has shown to be effective in reducing initiation of tobacco products. And tobacco companies do have a well-documented history of promoting flavored products as a way to attract new users, which they need to replace the thousands of people who die each year from tobacco-related issues, including the 19,000 Montana kids currently alive now that will die prematurely from smoking. So the federal flavor ban on flavored products exempted many products, allowing for many loopholes. And the Tobacco 21 policy is beneficial in slowing the access of products reaching youth. But by itself, it is not sufficient and needs to be accompanied by complementary policies like this ordinance. And this ordinance limits the availability of highly appealing and addictive flavored tobacco products. And in the absence of impactful federal and state regulations, we are focusing on our community to address the public health issue and protect our youth from being targeted by tobacco through product placement and flavors. And we bring forth this request to extend the flavored tobacco ordinance. And included in this ordinance is the restriction on self-service tobacco displays. As tobacco companies spend $1 million an hour advertising where they know it'll be seen, which is the point of sale. These point of sale strategies increase impulse purchases and normalize the presence of tobacco products in everyday life. And tobacco companies now spend most of their advertising and promotional dollars at the point of sale, making tobacco products appealing to children, but also triggering impulse purchases by addicted users seeking to quit. These photos were taken at retailers outside the city limits, showing how tobacco products are placed at the front register, near candy, or in the place of candy at varying parts of the counter and at eye level for children. These are referred to as self-service displays, which are defined as the open display or storage of tobacco products in a manner that is physically accessible in any way to the general public without having assistance of the retailer or employee. And because this is a health-related ordinance, the mayor can extend the applicability of the ordinance to 5 miles beyond the city limits. With the approval of the health board and county commissioners, extraterritorial application of the ordinance will further reduce youth access to dangerous and addictive tobacco products and stop predatory display tactics. This slide gives you a visual picture of the area that the flavored tobacco ordinance extends to outside of city limits with the extraterritorial application. And in closing the presentation today, we recommend that the Board of County Commissioners approve the extraterritorial application of Chapter 8.38 of the Missoula Municipal Code, which was adopted by the Missoula City Council on November 23rd, 2020. And we also have Council members Gwen Jones and Mirta Becerra, who are instrumental in the work on the ordinance and in passing the ordinance, who would like to provide additional information on the importance of the background of this ordinance.
Erwin and or Lisa, before we move on, so just in order that we are all clear, is this the motion for today? And talk to us about, we will have another public meeting, if I'm not mistaken, on this. So we are not taking final action today. Is that correct?
No, that's why it stated provisional approval of the tobacco resolution for extraterritorial application. We will have a public hearing on Thursday, January 28th at 2 p.m. For final approval of this resolution. So there's 2 public hearings, one today, the second one on January 28th.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's important for everyone on the line to know, just because we are limited on time today. If you want to comment and will not have the opportunity because we run short of time today, you will have an opportunity later in the month during that public hearing. So with that, any of the Missoula City Council guests want to speak at this time?
This is Mirta Becerra. Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity. I know you're very, very busy, so I'll just keep this very brief. I think Arwen did a really good job of bringing to you the historical background, if you will, on how vaping products have found their way into our community, and why it's important that we why drove pretty much City Council to develop this ordinance. And we are here now asking that you extend the extraterritorial powers to it. Just briefly, most of the kids, based on 2019 Missoula County Youth Risk Behavior Survey, said that 50% of them responded they had used an electronic vaping product, and more than 38% of them responded that they use an electronic vapor product in the last 30 days. So that tells you how highly addictive it is once they start vaping. Our youth obtain products in conjunction with electronic smoking devices from various sources, friends and family, local stores, and only a few of them via the internet. So local government can address local store sales by prohibiting the sale of these products. And this ordinance creates a greater barrier to youth possession, either by youth purchasing the product or by their friends and family or someone else purchasing it for them. And extending these protections and safety measures for our youth extraterritorially can be significantly more effective and equitable. So I ask that you join City Council on enacting these measures. Happy to answer any questions or more specific aspects of the ordinance if you want, but I know you're pressed on time. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Mirta. Councilwoman Jones, did you want to speak to this?
Thanks. I'll just briefly speak to it, that really all of the progress that was made in the last few decades to get youth tobacco use down, we've backtracked, we've lost all of that progress, and with the introduction of this vaping product in the last decade, we're right back, if not worse, than where we were. And I just want to emphasize, it's a really subtle, rather insidious product. My youngest is still in high school, and I got to tell you, the kids in high school are doing it throughout the high school. They are in the bathrooms, in the hallway, in the classroom, because this is such a small product. It has a much less of an odor than smoke, and you don't see the vapor nearly as much. So they literally sit in the back of the classroom and will blow it into their sleeve or into their shirt or their hoodie. So this is rampant, and it is a huge cultural shift. The other thing I just want to point out is that in December of 2019, the federal government did raise the minimum age for access to tobacco products from 18 to 21. That helped, but it did not resolve this problem. The CDC did a study, and it found that action, the impact of it was, instead of 1 in 4 high schoolers using tobacco products, now we have 1 in 5. So we still have a major, major problem. And this is a good way of creating some barriers and starting to lessen access to this product. So I really hope you support it. Thanks.
Thanks, Gwen. Is there anyone else from the city of Missoula on the line who would like to speak to this? Okay.
Dave, yes. This is Lisa. In closing, I just wanted to share that there is public comment also available through email, either to the commission or to the health promo at missoulacounty.us. And that is posted, all this information, on the website for tobacco prevention, Tobacco Free Missoula. And it will also be posted in legal ads the next 2 Sundays. So for public, letting you know that you can either attend the meeting or write to us and comment as well. So I wanted to let that know.
Thanks, Lisa. And since we do have other things on the agenda today, I want to move this forward by no later than 10:35. We're going to move on. So we have a little bit of time for public comment. If you are connecting via the internet, we'll take you first. We appreciate it if you would raise your hand, use the raise hand function, and I'll call on you. And then after we've exhausted anyone who wants to comment, Via the internet here, I will read through the list of phone numbers and see if anyone wants to comment who's on the phone. So any public comment? Mr. Allen.
See if I've hit all the right buttons here. Good morning, commissioners. I'll make this really brief because I know there are you're going to have the meeting on the 28th. I do want to point out that those of us in the retail industry in Missoula, you know, as an active stakeholder, worked pretty hard with and maybe a little against the council on some of the aspects of this, but a lot of effort was put into it. I would say that it's a little disappointing. A lot of us retailers get painted with a broad brush. Some of the things you saw in Arwen's presentation, we never even had those items. So, you know, that's a little difficult to, I don't want you folks to have the impression that, you know, all of the retailers are bad actors. In fact, we've been on the front lines of age restricted products for years. In fact, when the council was working on this, the 3 noon stores in town passed at least 2 compliance checks, maybe even 3. So keep that in mind going forward. The other thing, as a proud resident of the southeastern part of the county outside of the city limits, I will tell you, not that I'm necessarily of this ilk, but there are several of my neighbors who are not big fans of city ordinances being put their direction when they don't get the vote for the government that puts it out there. So I'm glad you're taking some careful consideration on this, and I'll make further comments on the 28th. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Allen. Anyone else on the internet who would like to comment? If you're viewing this through your computer, please raise your hand. If not, we will move on to the phone numbers, and I will just call out the last 4 digits of your number. If you're here to speak to this and would like to, feel free to do so. If not, I will take your silence as indication that I'll move on. So 6700, would you like to speak to this at all?
Yes, good morning. This is Michelle Arthur from Town Pump. How you doing?
Good morning, thank you.
Yeah, good. I'll just kind of piggyback off of what he had to say. We really appreciate you guys taking time to carefully consider the extension of the city ordinance outside the city limits. I guess I'm just curious, and I don't know if this is a place to ask it, but how, if this does get enforced, how the retailers will be notified and how we came to whatever city limits we're talking about, because I think there's going to be some confusion as to what we say city limits are and a drive to Lolo or a drive to Bonner might be. And that's all I have to say for now.
Thanks. Lisa, could you quickly take a stab at answering those questions? I guess it's kind of twofold, related to notification and then the 5-mile radius piece.
A letter will be mailed to all the retailers in the area of the 5-mile extraterritorial perimeter. And then how the 5 miles is measured is pretty much from where the crow flies. If I could pull up Arwen's map, it's measured from different points where the city limits end. So it's not necessarily a drive. It could be coming over the mountain like South Miller Creek over to Lolo. I don't know if that answers your question or not, and we could provide more clarification on the 28th to what that looks like.
Let's do that on the 28th, Lisa. If you could describe in greater detail precisely how the 5-mile radius measurement was taken, that would be helpful.
You bet. It is a little confusing. I understand. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Number 9170. Okay, we will assume you're not here to talk about that. Anyone else want to offer comment at this time, recognizing we will take this up again later in the month? Okay, Lisa, Arwen, could you please share with us the motion for today again? And do we need to insert the word provisional into the motion?
Yes, it is there. Yeah. So I bring to you today a request to the board to introduce and provisionally approve the tobacco resolution for the extraterritorial application of the City of Missoula Tobacco Ordinance 3672.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Josh or Juan, any questions or motion?
I think I'm good question-wise. How about you, Juan?
Good. No questions.
Right. Okay, then I would move that we provisionally approve the tobacco resolution for the extraterritorial application of the City of Missoula Tobacco Ordinance 3672.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we will take this up again at the public meeting on the 28th of January. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
And folks, and as you mentioned, Lisa, folks will have the opportunity between now and that public hearing to offer comment via email, snail mail.
Correct.
Whatever works for them.
Exactly. And we will compile that and share that information with you, the commission as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And thank you. Have a great day.
All right.
You too.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. Okay, we will move on to our next agenda item. Jason Howes, let's see. No, it's Kristen Jordan, PSA for the pilot project.
Thank you, Commissioners. So this is just a request to ask the board to approve the chair to sign a new contract with the Office of the Court Administrator to run the PSA pilot project. It's a little late in signing. We just signed the first iteration about 6 or 8 months ago. For a quick reminder, the legislative session a couple years ago set aside some money for the PSA pilot project. That ran from 2017 to 2019. Now we're in the next iteration of that pilot project, which is for another 2 years, that runs from 2019 to 2021. So really, we're looking at just finishing out the grant cycle with 6 months more of time. We have signed a contract just like this before. There's nothing new in this contract. It won't cost the county anything extra. And then at the end of the 6-month pilot project, well, actually, I guess it's a 4-year pilot project of which we have 6 months left. We will then probably come together to find out what the county would like to do with the public safety assessment. But in the meantime, this is a pretty stock standard contract.
Great, thanks.
And I would just say for those who are on the line who aren't familiar with this, this is using data and an algorithm to look at a defendant's history in determining pretrial conditions of release or not. Shorthand would be bail reform, but it's bigger than that.
Yeah, thanks for that, Josh. That's helpful.
I move that the chair sign the contract with the Office of Court Administrators for Missoula County's continued participation in the PSA project.
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion on that? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Thank
Kristen.
you. Thanks.
Okay, moving on. This is an item that came before us. I think last week we had to postpone it because of notification issues to the public. So, Jason, do you want to describe change order number 14 for the library project?
Sure. So this is just a change order. They've added another bookshelf that needed some seismic bracing. They added some staff lockers. Just a handful of small items like that turned into this. They had to add, for safety reasons, they had to add a eye wash into one of the sinks. So if somebody gets something in their eyes, they can wash them out. So yeah, just a few random tidy up things at the library at this point.
Great, thanks.
All right, I move we approve the change order.
Second.
Any further discussion on the change order? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks,
Thanks, Jason. I cannot wait to actually get into that library.
No kidding.
Someday.
It's coming close. It's coming close. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Emily, we have a contract amendment for Grounds Mid-Century Buildings contract.
Hi, how are you?
Very good, thanks.
Hey.
Good. Well, this is a contract for design. It's a design contract, so it's part of the architect's contract with A&E and their subcontractors, who are WGM Group for civil, JM Mechanical, and Maxis Electrical and DC. And this is for design and construction documents and construction administration for renovations to Building 35, which is the Home Arts Building. This project, when it's built, will add doors and windows to the Home Arts Building, which is the one right up there on South Avenue that has no windows at all. So there'll be nice windows out onto the carnival grounds, nice glass doors. It'll be ADA accessible. We'll have some restroom upgrades, some heating and electrical upgrades, connect to the Missoula water system, put on a new roof, and do some exterior painting and some nice lighting. We will not paint over the mural that is on South Avenue. That will stay. It'll get cleaned up, but it will stay. And so this project and the contract that I'm going to bring, that I have up next, both tie in really closely with the Rocky Mountain Exploration Center, because they really need to be bid and constructed around the same time. And so the design here sort of overlaps with the design of the Rocky Mountain Exploration Center and the design of the next contract that I have for you. And then when we bid them, we may bid some or parts of them all together. But this cost will be incurred, for this project, will be incurred through the fairgrounds and not through the Weed District. So.
Great, thanks. Any questions?
Nope. Is mid-century your favorite period, Josh?
I love that. Yeah, mid-century modern.
You want me
That's our age, Josh. We're both mid-century.
That's perfect.
It might be easier to do if I talk about both contracts.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Emily.
So the other contract dovetails with this one, and this is more not related to the building. So this is Fairway Drive, new fencing along South Avenue. So we're going to take down the chain link fence and put in like a seat wall with transparent fencing on top of it. A new gateway from South Avenue, so a nice, and then a little low rail fence along Fairway Drive. We'll put in lighting along Fairway Drive. So this is the infrastructure that ties in really closely with the Learning Center project, and some of it is for the Rocky Mountain Exploration Center, but it certainly overlaps with Fairgrounds redevelopment, and so these costs will be split as appropriate with the Rocky Mountain Exploration Center, but we want to bid it together, and so we're keeping track of sort of how all these things play in together. Ultimately, we're all on the same team here, and we need to see the project get completed. So we need to design it now, and then we can pull the trigger for bidding in the spring with the Rocky Mountain Exploration Center.
Okay, any questions, or we can take both of these at the same time?
No, I'm sorry, Josh, did you have any questions?
No, I'm good, thank you.
I move to approve both contract amendments for items 4 and 5.
What do you think, Josh? Okay.
Good, thanks.
This is great. Any further discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye. Thanks, Emily.
Yeah.
Thanks, Emily.
Take care.
Okay, Sarah Bell. We are going to talk about meetings and board assignments, I think.
Correct, yep. So this is just the annual review of all the meetings that you each attend individually. So like the Parks and Trails Advisory Board, the Fair Event Committee, or sorry, the Elections Advisory Committee, things like that. So I don't know if you have it all in front of you, the attached document.
Could you share your screen?
Yeah.
Sarah?
So it sounded like the general consensus was to stay on the current boards you're serving, but we do just need to review and make sure that everyone feels the same way. So I don't know if you can see.
Yeah, it's small enough. Can you make it any larger, Sarah?
Mm-hmm. that better?
That's better.
So it's just a broad overview of what you each do. So if we do any shuffling, we just need to make sure that it correlates with the other person's schedule to make sure that you're available during that time.
Dave, how are you feeling about the Partnership Health Center Board?
You know, I'm fine to stay the course with any and all of these. I think I brought that up previously. If it made any sense, synergy wise to do some reshuffling with other things that folks are working on. I know that you, Josh, have been involved with some PHC related initiatives, but you're also on the health board too. So 6 one, half a dozen the other, I guess.
Yeah, so Dave, I feel like I can just keep going with those initiatives with PHC without being on their board. If it works for you, I don't feel like I personally need a change there.
Okay, well that's good to know. Juanita, is there anything else you really have a hankering to?
No,
to do
no,
here?
I'm happy with what I have.
And did we pull the trigger on I guess shifting from commissioner representation to staff representation on Mr. TMA?
Oh,
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dave. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Josh, did you reach out to Aaron? You had mentioned that, or
No,
did you want
darn
us
it.
to?
I'm sorry. Could you? Oh, if you wouldn't mind, Sarah, that would really be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, and how does that work since he is a city employee? Is that correct representation, or do we need to get a county employee?
oh, were we gonna see if Eric could do it?
Well, I guess the question that I would have comes back to our dearly beloved bylaws for organizations. Is there something I'm assuming that Mr. TMA has bylaws of some sort. Is there something that prescribes that a county employee or a county commissioner has to be the representative, or can we just designate someone? In which case, Aaron lives in Missoula County, so.
Okay, I'll dig into that more and find out an
Thanks.
answer.
And I think, and Sarah, we could offer it up to Aaron or Eric Dixon if one wants to more than the other, or if one can or can't, we'd have two to work with.
Okay, I'm sure they'll both really want to.
Thank you.
Or if there's someone else, there might be some latent passion out there that could be brought to bear on this assignment. So.
Okay, I'll look into it and see who we can get on that.
Thanks a lot.
Yep, so that's the only change in the schedule then is Mr. TMA.
Okay,
yeah.
Sounds good. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay, and the next item, I believe, Kyla, refresh my memory, but I think I saw some correspondence earlier today suggesting that we're going to delay action on the Open Lands Advisory Committee.
Yes, we will delay to a different admin.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you. And the next one does not have a presenter, but I think we can probably handle it. It looks like a standard employment agreement with Crystal Blanchard, Director of Nursing and Partnership Health Center. It looks like just a pay adjustment here.
So, Commissioner.
Chris.
Hours adjustment, I believe. No, I don't
For
know.
some reason, so it's just a new employment agreement for an existing employee.
Oh, okay. Very good.
All right. I move we approve the standard employment agreement.
Second.
Anything more on that? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Wow, we made it through our action items. So moving into correspondence, we've got a meaty list today. So our first one is a request that the board sign a letter of support for legislation that would continue the option to use existing junk vehicle funds for junk mobile homes and junk non-motorized vehicles. Shannon Terrio, I saw your name. Do you want to speak to this?
Yes, I would love to talk about it. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. So Missoula gets about $200,000 a year for our junk vehicle program. That amount of money is based on the number of light vehicles that are registered in Missoula. And actually, on Thursday, I will be coming to you to ask you to sign the voucher for this year's money. We rarely use it all. Sometimes we have larger capital projects. We recently bought a $125,000 tow truck. We're making some improvements to our junk vehicle yard grading and drainage plan right now, or we're working towards that. But if we don't use all the money, we can put it in a capital improvement fund of up to $200,000, or it gets returned to the state in that they deduct it from our next year's grant. And so DEQ actually does depend on some counties not using all of their money. They would be over allocated if everybody used all their money every year, but that just doesn't happen. And so instead what happens is that that junk vehicle fund builds up over time, and every once in a while the legislature takes the money and puts it to other purposes. And so it really came out of Missoula. Willis Curdy saw a problem on Kerwald where there was a mobile home that front was torn off, and you could look in and still see all the appliances and furniture there, but we were just not able to, we had a hard time, I would say. Eventually we got it taken care of, getting that taken care of. And so last session, he introduced legislation that would allow us to use up to 20% of our junk vehicle fund. So in Missoula County, up to about $40,000 a year to deal with junk mobile homes. Those are uninhabitable mobile homes that are causing either community decay or a public nuisance, and non-motorized vehicles. So our sheriff's department was having an awful time with some pull behind trailers that were junk. Nobody would take them. Nobody wanted to deal with them. And certainly it doesn't make sense for the sheriff's department to have to use their budget to dispose of those abandoned things. And they've had to do that for non-motorized home and a mobile home, actually, if you will recall. I think it came from the sheriff's budget. It might have come from your general fund. This program has worked great in Missoula County. In the last year and a half, we've gotten rid of 7 junk mobile homes and 7 junk non-motorized vehicles. It has been throughout the county, which just does my heart good. We've worked on things up in Seeley Lake and Deep Creek, taken a trailer from Lolo out on Western Farms Road and Fred's Lane. So really, we have been in all parts of the county. And when we remove a junk mobile home from somebody's property, we do it with the agreement that they'll clean up their property, because there's almost always other junk on that property. And so it really has given us the ability to leverage those funds to get rid of community decay within the county, and then to get rid of the safety hazards that some junk non-motorized vehicles are causing. So it's great, but they put a sunset on it, and they did that basically to get it passed because there was some kind of, I would say minor, but major enough pushback on whether it was an appropriate use of funds. We met over the interim to see if there was a better way to do it. Didn't find a better way to do it. And so this session, Rebecca has found, and she probably talked to you about this already, but she has found a sponsor, Senator Coffey from Sanders County, I believe, to carry a bill that would at least extend the sunset, if not remove it. I would like to see it removed. And she has asked us to find letters of support throughout the state for this. And we have Mallory Scharf is our public health policy specialist. She's helping the health department through the legislative session. And she's gotten similar letters to this from Jefferson County, Fallon, Lake, Richland, and Sanders. So you can see that even small counties are really finding a way to use this, and it's important to them. So we think that more counties will do it if it stays in effect. It's an optional program. You don't have to. You have to fund your full junk vehicle program before you can use the money this way, and we certainly do that. So this is a letter of support.
It looks like Anna Connolly has her hand up.
Okay. I just wanted to echo that this is an amazing tool in our toolbox for enforcement actions for solid waste. It's been great to see it used the last couple of years, and I just want to echo how useful it is for us.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Anna. Thanks, Shannon. This will come to us via DocuSign. So
Excellent.
okay. All right. Thank you. Next, moving on, we have a second letter. This one urging legislators to not to include a cap on per diem rates paid to county detention centers by Department of Corrections. Who do we have out there who'd like to speak to this? Chris? Someone else? Anna, you're back.
I can speak to this. I drafted this letter for your consideration. As you're aware, the Missoula County attempted to resolve a situation in which the Department of Corrections is underpaying us for inmates that we house both in the pretrial side as well as on the mass correctional facility that we have for DOC. We were unable to resolve it with DOC, and so we filed suit. The basis for DOC's underpayment is the last 3 legislative sessions. They have inserted unilateral caps on what DOC can pay counties to house their inmates. This is even in the face of contracts that require them to pay us actual and/or reasonable costs depending on the per diem at issue. If we get another session with another unilateral cap, we are just going to continue to have to fight about the caps. So what I'm hoping is that we can have a legislative session without a cap, so we can cabin off the damages that we have for the last 3 sessions. We can ultimately get this resolved through the courts with DOC, and we can move on with a contractual agreement that is fair for all parties involved. The last few legislative sessions, these caps have just been sort of inserted here and there. So this is a letter that would go to the Law and Justice Subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee, because that's generally where in the last few sessions we've seen it introduced. We haven't seen it introduced yet, but if history repeats itself, it'll end up in there. So we're trying to proactively tell this subcommittee, please don't do this. It violates the Constitution. It violates contractual obligations with Missoula County. There's existing litigation. Please don't do this. Let's stop this problem from continuing.
And are there other counties that are in a similar situation?
Yeah, there are 2 other counties that have a regional correctional facility like our Mask facility. And I don't know the state of the situation with them. We're the only county that I'm aware of that's filed suit on these particular causes of action, although there is a contract-based lawsuit with Cascade County and DOC that's ongoing. I would be curious to hear whether the counties that have, and any county that, like ours, has a standard of living that requires that we pay a significant amount of money to our detention officers, and that houses the number of inmates that we do in the population that we do, the level of care that requires is going to create this cost per inmate that's higher than this unilateral cap on the county side as well. So yes, to answer your question, depending on which side you're talking about, there are other counties that are negatively impacted.
Thanks.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, this sounds like an important piece of business we need to take care of and encourage our legislators to do so. So that will come to us via DocuSign also. Chris, do you want to talk to us about the final letter? And this one is related to the state's COVID vaccination timeline.
Sure. So this is a letter to the governor, and we do need to make one minor modification to it just to include that we're also going to send it to Major General Quinn, who has been announced as his COVID task force leader. So I want to make sure we include him on the letter as well. So it's a request to move law enforcement, corrections, and 911 back up into Tier 1B, which is the category that's about to start. As you can imagine, for law enforcement officers, correction, and 911, they work in very close proximity to each other. And so what we have are circumstances where law enforcement officers or dispatchers are either infected or become close contacts, and then that can dramatically impact our ability to staff the detention facility, 911, or sheriff's department, because those close contacts generate their own close contact circle, right, as it kind of expands out, and because they work in that issues. So there's been what I'm going to call unclear guidance from the state as to whether or not local jurisdictions can make those modifications. Of course, the problem with a local modification is there's a lot of groups that got moved out of 1B, and so what we're asking for is a specific clarification from the state.
Thanks. Any questions from anyone on any of those 3 letters that are going out? Okay.
No.
We will move on rapidly to our final discussion items. We have on the list budget amendments. Is Amanda Henthorn out there? Is there something you'd like to speak to here?
Yep, I have 2 budget amendments for the public meeting on this Thursday. Both are in essence neutral and won't require any additional county funds. The first received from the Montana Board of Crime Control grant for a temporary attorney in the county attorney's office. And the second is for some expanded services related to the Milan area master plan the city has requested will be reimbursing us for. And I will have Matt Jennings and Andrew Egemeyer available to answer any questions on the 14th as well.
Great. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Anything related to the legislative session? Chris or Ann?
We have a couple of bills to go over the commissioners. The first is we just need to clarify which commissioner would like to speak to House Bill 107, I believe is the number. Sorry, I'm pulling up my list here. HB 107. This is the revised mill election laws that requires a 2/3 vote and also changes the ballot language to include increments of in $100,000 increments up to the maximum value of a property in Missoula County. As you can imagine, that will take the length of ballots to many, many pages, which will create some significant costs. That hearing is tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. All of you have kind of a tough schedule this week is the nicest way that I can put it. Your guys' schedule is always super busy. But tomorrow at 9 o'clock, it looks like Dave and Josh both have personal appointments. So Juanita, I don't know if you would feel comfortable doing that testimony. We do have talking points for you that Allison and the team have put together to kind of help you out.
Yeah, that sounds great.
We have to register in advance, so we will register you today as a speaker to the bill. And so you should get an email with a Zoom link in that. And then that would be the link that you would use for that testimony at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Thanks, Juanita.
Yeah, so we will work on that. So that's the very first bill that we have for you. Sorry, we'll run through just a couple of others really quickly to let you know where we are on them. House Bill 126. This is a bill that revises the laws revises the laws concerning the conduct of persons with alcoholism or drug addiction. So wanted to talk just briefly about this bill with the commission. It's a bill designed to prohibit laws related to public intoxication in those crimes. It kind of has a social justice flavor to it, so we did not know whether the commission would want to weigh in on that bill or not. That would be a completely discretionary bill. It's not a direct topic for Missoula County. We don't have the statutory authority to do this anyway. But as to whether we want to, generally the commission has expressed interest in wanting to be forward-looking when it comes to some of these equity issues. So,
Chris, could you describe what would happen? Oh. Yeah, I didn't quite. Thank you, Juan. I didn't quite understand. What would the effect be if someone was publicly intoxicated if this bill became law?
So if this bill became law, there would not be an effect. Right now, under Montana law, you can actually criminalize public intoxication, and it is in many places across the state of Montana. So this bill would actually remove that criminal penalty for public intoxication and make it so you could not enact that as a crime.
Okay. So if this bill became law, it could be made somewhere that public intoxication was not a crime.
Yes. Yeah. So again, not a bill we necessarily weigh in on, and not a bill we need to decide on today, but just a bill in case the commission is interested. Some of these social justice topics have been of interest in the past, and so just to get your feeling as to whether that's one you would like to weigh in on.
Well, let's keep that. Let's monitor that. I think we ought to have some more discussion about that if we wanted to weigh in one way or the other.
Sure. The next bill, I'm going to go ahead and skip over a couple of these because we have agreement with the health department. The last bill I just wanted to touch on really quickly is HB 122. This is the first of the what I'm going to call public health law bills. So this one comes from a senator from Ravalli County and will be heard, Ann can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I believe it's on Thursday that this bill will be heard. And so this bill would make it so any order by the health department or order by the health board would have to be approved by each of the local governing boards who are part of a health department.
Chris, is there, how do we comment on the ridiculousness of this?
So I have some good talking points from Ellen. The big conflict that I think we can put in from our side of it, as opposed to the pieces that are being brought from the health department side of that, the main focus I would say for us is while we understand that this is a response to the pandemic piece for folks, it has such broader implications, and so right. I'm just gonna pick on wildland fire season because that's our most common disaster. The health department is often intimately involved in those, making decisions related to whether a building can be used as a shelter, making emergency orders that allow us to conduct food service. They would no longer have the ability to do that. So in the middle of a disaster, we would need to convene a commission meeting and a city council meeting in order to be able to house people who have been evacuated. It is not the worst bill I'm sure we will see this session related to that, but it does raise some issues. So I would like to put forward those issues on your behalf, but I wanted to just make sure because of course we know this is a hot button topic at the legislature this year, and obviously an issue that we need to address going forward related to how we address public health. But this one is just really broad in its impact. It's literally any health order, and that has huge impacts.
I mean, wouldn't that mean that we would have to approve the closing of a commercial kitchen?
Well, you probably would if it extended beyond a very short duration. The other big impact that would have, for example, when you think of like the Y Mullen Sewer project, for example, can you imagine if you had a thing where we've got sanitary, septic, and sewer failing in an area? If the commission and the city council don't agree, the city we would not be able to install sewer in that area because the health board would normally be where the regulatory authority would come for that ability to extend sewer. And so, I mean, like I said, it just has broad implications outside of immediate public health related to the pandemic.
It does seem like kind of a huge blunt instrument being used to solve a fairly particular fine-grained problem, and maybe the crafters of this bill will revise.
Yes. So, Chris, since we're out of time here pretty much, would you like one of us to be on that call to the legislature?
If you are available, I'm sure that would be appreciated.
Chris, it was heard this morning.
Oh, well,
we've already sent comment on it. I copied and pasted the contents of that comment into the chat window if you would like to review it. But there will be additional opportunity to offer our opposition.
Yes. I'm sure
and
there
if
will be.
Is moved, then we will be happy to connect you.
And the last one, just really quick, that we're opposing, HB 122 is revising the state's disaster authority. Again, the big problem here for us is wildland fire season, which is our most common disaster. It would limit the governor's disaster declaration to 30 days. As we all know, fire season lasts a lot more than 30 days in the state of Montana, and so it would prohibit him from reenacting another one. So if we had a bad wildland fire as we did last year, where it started in eastern Montana in June and hit us in August, we would not be able to get any assistance from the state or the federal government because you have to have a state disaster declaration to get federal assistance in most cases. So we would have some real serious concerns around that. So we'll be sending opposition related to that one as well. So
good to know.
I know you have to go to your next meeting, so we'll touch base more on Thursday.
Okay. Any other closing thoughts before we all need to split for other things?
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. It was an action-packed meeting. We'll reconvene at a different day and time.
Thank you all.
Thanks everybody.
Way to go.
All right. Goodbye.
Well done.
Bye.